As Brics rises, challenging the old financial order, we're left to ponder, are we truly reclaiming our freedom from global elites? Trump's hidden maneuvers add another layer of intrigue. Are we witnessing a shift towards genuine sovereignty, or are we just puppets in a larger game? The fallen angels of power may still be pulling strings behind the scenes, manipulating outcomes while we chase the illusion of independence. It's a complex dance of power, where the lines between liberation and control blur. Are we breaking free, or just stepping into a new cage?
Australia, one of America's most dependable allies, is starting to pivot. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese isn't doing photo ops. He's in Beijing for real talks, signing deals, and opening direct trade channels with China. The game changer? Australian counterparts are already settling payments in Chinese yuan. Every trade settled outside the dollar narrows its reach, and this shift is happening in plain view. A recent $2 billion loan from China, denominated and paid in yuan, pushes that door wider, setting the stage for more financial settlements in China's currency rather than US dollars. And the horizon may tilt even further. Policy circles are now openly debating whether Australia could move toward BRICS. If Canberra takes that step, Washington doesn't just lose a partner, it loses a cornerstone of its Indo-Pacific strategy. That prospect would set off alarms across the White House. So how did it come to this? Who nudged Australia off its old track, and why now? Stay with me. We're going to pull apart the deals, the pressure points, and the choices that brought Australia to this moment. For decades, Australia was counted among America's most reliable allies in the Pacific. Washington could depend on Canberra for military support, intelligence sharing, and strong trade ties. That long-standing trust, however, is now under strain, and the pressure comes from Donald Trump's policies. Trump's new tariffs on Australian steel, aluminum, and agricultural products have struck at the core of the country's economy. These sectors employ thousands and keep regional communities alive. When Washington suddenly raised duties, Australian farmers lost access to their biggest market. Steel and aluminum producers began cutting jobs, and businesses across the supply chain felt the shock. Analysts estimated the damage at around $57 billion when the tariffs were first announced. For many Australians, that figure became a symbol of how much the alliance was costing them rather than supporting them. The frustration quickly moved into politics. Inside Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's cabinet, the debate is no longer behind closed doors. One camp insists that the U.S. remains irreplaceable, pointing to the security umbrella, intelligence cooperation, and American military presence in the Pacific. But another group argues for strategic independence, pushing Australia to diversify and build stronger ties with China, India, and even Russia. The fact that this discussion is now public, aired in Parliament and debated in the media, shows how far the mood has shifted. Albanese's latest visit to China brought the contrast into the open. It wasn't a quick courtesy call. He spent 6 full days in 3 major Chinese cities, held an extended summit with Xi Jinping, and even shared a private lunch with Xi and his wife. These gestures were carefully staged to highlight respect and trust, and the images dominated headlines in both countries. At the same time, Donald Trump canceled his planned meeting with Albanese. In Canberra, that decision stunned officials. On one side, China was signaling warmth and attention. On the other, the US president was sending a message that Australia was not a priority. For many Australians, the comparison was impossible to ignore. The outcome of that trip is now clear. Australia is no longer just repairing old disputes with Beijing. It is moving toward deeper cooperation. Trade agreements, new investments, and political goodwill are all being explored. China has played its hand with patience, offering economic relief and respect. Trump, in contrast, has pushed Australia away through tariffs and indifference. For Washington, the implications are serious. Australia has always been central to US strategy in the Pacific.
Brics and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization are reshaping global dynamics, emphasizing national sovereignty. At the recent SCEO summit, over 20 heads of state gathered, signing a joint declaration to enhance security and economic cooperation. With 42% of the world's population and a combined GDP of 36% based on purchasing power, these nations are asserting their influence. Xi Jinping and Modi highlighted the benefits of cooperation for 2.8 billion people, while Putin stressed the importance of a multipolar world, opposing discriminatory sanctions. As Brics pushes for a digital currency by 2026 and accumulates gold, the dollar's dominance is under serious threat. The world is changing rapidly, and the global south is stepping into the spotlight.
The world needs to pay attention to who this man is, because he is inspiring an African revolution against the West right now. This is 37-year-old Ibrahim Traore. He is the second youngest head of state in the world right now, and what his supporters say he represents is simple: African independence. You see, Burkina Faso is a former French colony, and since he became leader of the country in 2022, he has accused France of neocolonialism, which in other words is when a country is still trying to control the other, but now just through more hush means. So when he seized power, he started to make drastic changes. He ordered the French troops to leave the country. He expelled French diplomats and Western media. He banned the use of British and French colonial-style judicial wigs in efforts to decolonize the country's judicial system. And then he started making major changes. He started cutting ties with foreign companies involved in Burkina Faso's infrastructure development, like roads, bus stations, airports, and then started replacing them with locally equipped and trained workers, and then acquired around 1,000 road building machines for them to use. He started introducing policies to boost local control over food production and processing. He started pushing for greater state control over energy, reducing the dependence on foreign suppliers of electricity. And then, in the clearest statement to the West yet, he started buying back a number of the country's major gold mines previously owned by foreign entities. He called the purchases a reclaiming of national wealth from exploitative foreign ownership. But here's where things get crazy, because what started in Burkina Faso has now become something much bigger. They've now joined forces with Mali and Niger to form the alliance of Sahel states, basically saying, we've got each other's backs and we're done with all influence from the West. Ivory Coast and Senegal are now also pushing to remove foreign military bases, and a former Nigerian senator described Traore's actions as the spirit of a continent yearning to be free, dignified, and prosperous. And that is exactly why we're seeing it slowly transition from one country in Africa to Africa as a whole. Because the question that's increasingly being asked is, why is such a resource-rich continent that literally powers the world so poor themselves? Now, here's the problem. We've seen revolutions like this in Africa before, and they haven't ended well. Back in the 1980s, Thomas Sankara led Burkina Faso with almost the exact same vision Traore has now, rejecting foreign aid, nationalizing roads and railways, and calling for true African independence. But just 4 years later, he was assassinated. His policies were reversed, and French firms regained contracts for roads, railways, and ports in Western Africa. So is Traore walking that same path? We don't know. But there are reports that he has survived 19 assassination attempts in 2 years. However, not all those claims have been verified. And it's also important to note that Traore has his critics. Some call him a dictator because he rose to power in a coup. He's postponed elections, he's banned the media, and he's cracked down on dissent, and critics saying no country has ever developed under democracy. So the question is, what do you think? Is this just another dictator grappling for power, or the man to ignite a long-needed change for Africa?
A man who stands alone is a very dangerous man. You'll never see his scars, but they're there, buried deep from battles he's fought in silence. He's faced his demons alone and won. And that makes him more dangerous than you can imagine.
Stealing from honest South Africans, this time awarding a 531 million rand tender to a company that doesn't even have directors, that's in the process of being delisted. It doesn't get much more corrupt than this. Patronage, theft, outright pilfering of your retirement funds by criminals appointed by none other than the kleptocratic African National Congress. So they've already given this company over 40 million rand, and it hasn't performed a single service. The contract was over a 5-year period for biometrics. And this raises all sorts of questions about the complete lack of oversight within South Africa. Are there any adults in the room whatsoever since the National Party surrendered and gave up control of the country in 1994? It appears as if it's just a pilfering holiday left, right, and center. Whether it's South African Airways, it's Transnet, it's Airports Company South Africa, it really doesn't matter. The thieves in the ANC's kleptocracy run rampant, and now they're stealing your pensions, as we thought for a long time. And the proof is in the pudding. News 24 breaks the story today that 531 million rand was awarded to basically, arguably, a fictional company, one in the process being delisted, one that doesn't have a board of directors. You can't get any more obvious when you steal from the public than what they've done here, in this case of robbing your pensions. It's pretty sad, and it calls for an external force. I don't know, the United Nations, the African Union, Southern African Development Community, somebody needs to be an adult in the room to oversee what's happening in South Africa, because clearly Cyril Ramaphosa's Luthuli House isn't capable of managing its own affairs. I mean, there isn't a single thing that isn't being stolen from. Point something out to me where we haven't had a scandal, a corruption scandal. Arms Corps, Janelle, Airports Company South Africa, South African Airways, Transnet. The list is endless of corrupt enterprises in South Africa. And what do they all have in common? Two things. Number one, they're all parastatal, state-owned enterprises, or really state-owned patronage projects, you'd call them. That's number one. And number two, they're all run and controlled by the African National Congress. And that's the bottom line here, folks. This is the mess that they've created. While the world has looked the other way at the 145 racist laws that they passed punishing racial minorities in a revenge mode that's been going on for over 30 years now, while the world has looked the other way and pretended that this is April 27th, 1994, it's all Rainbow Nation, kumbaya, 12-hour queues to vote for the first time for 90-year-old go-go's, that's not the world that South Africans live in, black, white, and brown. They live in a world of economic oppression, disguised under the guise of transformation. The only thing that's been transformed in South Africa is the oppressors. We've gone from a white minority ruling the country and oppressing the majority to a majority black-led government oppressing all but the caters. If you're a cater, you're in great shape in South Africa. If you're a cater, you get to enjoy the riches and privileges that are pilfered from everyone else. And if you happen to have right skin pigmentation, all the more so for you. That's the bottom line here, folks. Another breaking news story. But you know what? At this point, can we even call these stories breaking? Every day of the week, there's a scandal with ANC-appointed officials stealing from the public. It's almost blasé. People looking the other direction now because it's been going on for so damn long. So long. And nothing's happening about it. No one's doing anything. South Africans aren't rectifying the situation. The world is ignoring what's going on. And who suffers? You know, what's fascinating about all of this is the ANC says that they're transforming the economy to help the historically disadvantaged. But of course, that's all poppycock. It's balderdash. There are 3 times as many black South Africans living in abject poverty today than there were in 1994. Nearly 30 million black South Africans lived in abject poverty. And most South Africans don't even have electricity on a good day. And you can't drive on the road, can't drive on the left side, can't drive on the right side. You're driving what's left of the road in much of South Africa. This is what the ANC has brought to South Africa. Not liberation, but oppression, racial discrimination, and economic collapse. What say you, South Africa, Mzansi? Are you surprised at this latest corruption scandal? Awarding a contract of R500 million to basically a fictitious company. And I got to give credit here where credit's due. News 24 is doing a very fine job. On a daily basis, News 24 is exposing this corruption. You know, and I frequently call them cockprot 24 because their bizarre leftist leanings and their tendency to publish op-eds that make no sense whatsoever. And their downplaying of the threat to South Africans, particularly racial minorities. But in this case, I got to give News 24, Cockprot 24, some credit once again. Another excellent job reporting on the widespread, pervasive, yes, I know that's redundant, widespread and pervasive, corruption that is endemic now in South Africa as the world looks the other way. What say you folks? From York in England. Cheers.
Okay, so all through the pandemic, I have been bombarded, as have many people, with this notion of something called Nasara Jasara. Now, I'm pretty sure you're more across this than me, Jason, because I thought that sounds ridiculous. It's never going to happen. You know, that's sort of hopium, and what could it mean? But then I started to learn about the UCC. And when I do speeches myself or when I MC and open for other people, I always talk about the UCC, which is the Uniform Commercial Commercial Code. Now, this Uniform Commercial Code, you would imagine, because it's commercial, has no bearing on us. Now, for a long time, I've researched and looked into this whole straw man scenario where all of your bills and your licenses and your passport and birth certificate and everything, your name is in capitals. And there are political parties in Australia, independent freedom parties, who say if any of these corflutes have names in capitals, you shouldn't vote for them, because that's not us. Your birth name is in English. You know, if it was Nicola, it's a big N and then small letters. And these capitals represent commercial. Now, they have been trying to draw humanity into corporate law, commercial law, for a long time. I believe ruthlessly it's behind the trans agenda and all of this identifying as other things, because once you publicly declare and legally declare, you know, I identify as a bridge or a cat or a puppy, you're actually taking yourself out of man-woman status legally. And once you do that, you're seen differently by the court. So a legal precedent has been set by a guy in Texas yesterday. Right now, all of this UCC commercial code, look it up, do your own research, has been allowed to fraudulently use us, human beings, as secured collateral for a long time, probably at least since 2014. Now, they've been able to do this lawfully because there were legal precedents for it. And yesterday, the legal precedent ended. So let me read to you what has happened. You can look it up in the press. The UCC has now defaulted to the UCC 1. This is I'm not over exaggerating when I say this is the biggest news humanity, human beings, have ever received since the birth of Christ. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. This is the end of slavery. Right. So basically, the headline is mankind is free. A guy called Govinda Tidball, I think he's of Indian heritage, but he's a Texan guy. So he says that there was a birth bond issue and he was looking into it, and this is a straw man thing. So he was worried that it was a corruption lever. And as he looked into it, he realized it was. So it's the securitization of the living as a credit value on the dead. Sounds quite confusing. What does that mean? But it means that the living must pay for the dead. So cue the pandemic, right? The living are paying for the dead. So what it basically means is he has children. And once he'd learned all this information, his wife was pregnant and he was about to have a son. When the son was born, because he'd learnt all of this, he, in his birth plan that he gave to the hospital, part of the birth plan was that the family get to keep the cord and the placenta. This is going to sound crazy, but this is what's happened with this UCC 1. Because he'd learned that the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code, and courts in America had deemed the cord and the placenta, which at the time of birth are alive. They then ask you they say to you, would you like to cut the cord? In the moment that you say yes and you cut the cord and the placenta become a deceased twin of the living baby. This is how dark and greedy these people are, and the banks and financial institutions are behind it. What they then do is enslave the living child as a secured creditor to pay the debts of the dead twin, which was never a twin. It was a placenta and a cord. Can you believe this stuff? Let me read on. So he said, your fraudulent birth certificate is a corporatization of you, the living, right? And apparently 100 years ago, there was a guy called Edward Mendel House, and this was the evil way to kill the spawn of people at the moment of birth. And then it goes into the umbilical cord and what I just explained. He said it's all about property ownership. He said if you own a piece of silver and keep it as a piece of silver, it holds its value. But if you mix it with gold, it's considered corrupted. So this is what they were trying to do with us. It's securities fraud. It's a fraudulent security. And he claimed in court, Govinda, that the biological property of his child is his in the birth plan. No consent was given. So then a fraudulent securities instrument was still created, even though he said that in his birth plan. They still considered his son's cord and placenta as a dead twin, right? So they went ahead and did that, even though that was in his birth plan. They really messed with the wrong guy, Jason, right? So they said that he contracted with them, but he didn't. So they tested him to see if he knew what he was really talking about in court. So he believes, he said in court, that we're here to live and experience this planet and serve God, not as collateralization, right? So they make us the collateralization of the living, and that he's created a legal instrument so it's no longer in their hands. He has legally removed it. So it's now known as a public fraud. It's called a perfected claim. You're all going to have to research this on your own. I can actually put a link in of him describing this much better than I, right? These are just the headlines of it. So something called a final declaration has occurred under law. It is now a fact in law, and there is no debate. Anyone can see it. Anyone can bring it into any court case that they have, anyone they like, anywhere in the world. They are now, these people, the financial institutions, are now the debtor of the living. It's been flipped in UCC 1. It's a reversal, and Nasara Jasara is apparently now lawful, and in essence. So there is a criminal and a fraudulent side to what they've done. So as per the RICO code in America, people must be paid triple times 3 what was taken from them when they were used as secure collateral. Now, people our age, Jason, in their cesta cave trust, which is this secure collateral on our lifetime of work, paying the debts of the dead, is approximately, can be up to $1 billion. So they would owe each individual in that case $3 billion. That's what this case defines. It's called a legal precedent under the US code and the UCC code. This is all factual. You're going to die when you see the clip. It's what he said. It's why Doge exists. Doge is using this instrument now. Look, there are lots of institutions involved, financial institutions around the world. And they can no longer do this. So it's a restoration of the living man globally. Physical bodies have been unfairly incorporated by a birth certificate bond with the name in all caps. It takes time to adjust, but they are now in something with the living. I can't read my own writing. They may not use us basically as secure collateral anymore. The all caps fraud is gone. It's over. The institutions will be breaking the law the next time they do this. I'm talking a bill, a fine, a birth certificate, a license, a passport, anything. If they do it in all caps and bring you into corporation, they're breaking the law. It's called a misprism of fraud and a felony by holding the living as secured collateral. He's had a win, Jason. There is now legal precedent. They can't do this to us anymore, and it's the end of slavery. Happy Easter. How about the timing?
It's absolutely extraordinary. That's something that we're all going to have to sink our teeth into and devour and understand what the processes are to be able to deliver on that. But for many of us watching what was going on, to just maybe put it into another practical perspective, there's not a human being living today on Earth that was living before 2020 that hasn't got a right to be a part of a class action against the powers that be that allowed COVID to happen.
Everything you believe about freedom and justice is a lie. You're not a citizen with rights. You're a commodity in a rigged system. Your birth certificate? It's a receipt marking you as property. Your social security number? That's your stock ID. The government, the courts, the banks, they're all part of a massive scam designed to drain your energy and money. Judges serve the banks, enforcing a system that sees you as just another resource to exploit. Every fine, every tax, every legal document reduces you to a corporate entity, easy to control. The Federal Reserve and IRS, private entities keeping you in debt, enslaved. Wars and economic crashes, all part of a calculated plan to consolidate power. You are a pawn in their game. It's time to wake up and see the chains fight back.
We are now free, or at least the Americans are. So, restored Constitutional Republic, you are now watching the door opening to military occupation 11.3, law of wars, operations that will lead to massive arrests and storm operations. The beginning stages of DC today, August the 11th, these beginning operations of 11.3 will spread throughout cities across the United States. It's no longer just a conspiracy. Now that the military will end the deep state occupation and the deep state foreign occupation. Congratulations, patriots. We are finally at this stage at a very important in U.S. history. Military is the only way, as we have always said. Q Trump is restoring the new Republic Constitution order. That means Washington, D.C. is federalized, which revokes their autonomous statute once shared with the City of London and the Vatican. It makes Washington, D.C. free of corporate beholdings to foreign banksters' interests that were established back in 1871 is now all erased. Prepare. EBS message will be sent over phones, TV, and radio around the globe, saying that the next 5 hours or so, everyone must or needs to be at home for a global lockdown that would last for 10 to 12 days. Let's hope it's only 10 to 12 days. There are very interesting developments out of Washington by Reuters, citing anonymous U.S. officials report that hundreds of National Guard troops are being readied and deployed to D.C. Sources claim that the troops are already in position awaiting the official order from the president. We're taking our countries back, people. This comes just days after Trump openly stated that he was considering bringing the Guard into the Capitol, a move that would align perfectly with the plan at 10 a.m. announced tomorrow and the ongoing federal takeover of D.C. While the sources remain anonymous in the timing, this is going to take place, and it already has been unfolding. I believe we've got it taken back. Now, Trump's public statement makes this worth watching closely. Something is brewing in the Capitol. Stay alert, stay frosty. U.S. corporations, the 1871 Act is reversed. The U.S. Corp is dead, no longer just a city of power or the three horns of evil. We have taken it, and now it's becoming a sovereign capital, which I think it will be moved. The 1776 common law has been restored as of yesterday. The deep state loses everything. They lose offshore accounts. They lose, and everything along that line is frozen and will go into the coffers once they have been proven that they have been doing illegal practices of any sort. The media empire is being dismantled and replaced by patriots. Their AI puppet masters are decommissioned and arrested. a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, Patriots. So, we just have to, have faith in God and whoever's, leading the global alliance. A quantum internet will erase the Mockingbird legacy, which is the media. Microsoft, Google, Facebook, it will be obsolete. One singular truth-based media will rise, led by the military intelligence, not corporate tyrants, not the MOAB, mother of all bombs, is the global currency reset backed by the precious metals. That is coming. We are moving into a new age of gold and precious metals that God has created for his people. With the ISO 20022 US coins are in circulation. It's not speculation, it's deployment. Every suppressed technology is going to be released. Every crime declassified. Every soul will be freed. The deep state removal process, the next 7 days, the 17th letter on the telegram is going to be releasing updates daily. Now, DC, Washington, D.C., initiated through executive directives, marks a pivotal fracture in the interface power matrix, stripping away layers of autonomy and shielded deep state operatives from accountabilities. This maneuver deployed federal oversight across the key states. And they're going to go from city to city, and once they take over Washington, they're going off onto New York. So, it's all going to get cleaned up. Agencies including the DEA, FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office, Metro Police, U.S. Marshals, pretrial services, court services, and offenders supervision agencies, and the ATF dismantled localized corruption hubs, paving the way for a broader system. Okay, I can't read the bottom part of it. Back channels assignments indicate this is no isolated crime crackdown, but a strategic precursor of the reinstallation foundational structures of the whole system, long suppressed by globalist influence. They're gone. Prepare for the EBS. Alert C, global currency reset is incoming. They saying that everything's going to be, the EBS will be activated. All assets will be quantum audited, corrupt entries wiped clean. NESARA and QFS plan to process the RV redemption starters. Actual signature forms like NDA and post-redemption plan documentation inside the exclusive New World. It's all happening, folks. And my time is up. Unless I'm going to maybe try to go further with this. NESARA Jacera, Baron Trump, the chosen one on Telegram, planet Earth, is entering a great shift of consciousness, the great awakening into the unified consciousness that we will soon all witness. Mother Earth is returning as a sacred planet and taken with her all the who chosen to go. The golden age beyond imitation is drawn to a close. Being global prosperity, peace, and the end of poverty, hunger, and the debt Jassara Global Economic Stabilization and Recovery Act as a new beginning.
Donald Trump is making it obvious that Q is real, and he's also now showing us how Q works and how people have been decoding. Well, it's also showing that Q is a non-conspiracy. It's the truth. And it also highlights the information that Q has been putting out for many years. A lot of people are reluctant to even go on Q. There's so many people that dismiss Q, and they call it a LARP. Well, look how obvious this is. 24 hours ago, Donald Trump puts out a post on his social media, and it says Woody Allen wants to direct Donald Trump in another movie after 1998's Celebrity, a pleasure to work with and a very good actor. On the same day, he puts out 2 posts about Chicago, and it says Chicago is the murder capital of the world. So if we look at those 2 words, Woody Allen and murder, they both take us to posts which were from 5 years ago on the exact same day. These posts are very important because there's 4. And all the people that say there's been no arrests, all these people getting away with it, these 4 posts are about paedophilia, crimes against children, everyone in politics that's been dealt with for a long time, showing that we're keeping an eye on all these people and no one gets away with that evil. So watch, 4 pages full. So the one with Woody Allen on, it says, Democratic activist, donor and director Roman Polanski fled the country after pleading guilty to statutory rape of a 13-year-old girl. Democrats and Hollywood actors still defend him to this day, including Whoopi Goldberg, Martin Scorsese, Woody Allen. And it's just lists of all these politicians. Look, Andrew Myers was convicted of possession of child pornography and enticing children. Democratic activist, donor and spokesperson for Subway, Jared Fogle, was convicted of distribution and the receipt of child pornography and travelling to engage in illicit sexual conduct with a minor. So if you type in murder, it brings us back to these posts again. Republican anti-abortion activist Nicholas Morency pleaded guilty to possessing child pornography on his computer and offering a bounty to anyone who murders an abortion doctor. Republican legislator Edison Misla Alejandro was sentenced to 10 years in prison for raping his daughter between the ages of 9 and 17. And it's sick. So people say nothing's happening. Q has showed us 4 full pages of all these people in politics that have been involved with all this disgusting stuff. This is what it all comes back to. So people say Q's a conspiracy. They've been showing us. But it's also highlighting Donald Trump puts out keywords. You search them in, it takes you to the post. But it happens to be the post on the exact same day. And this one was from 2020. There's all the proof that you need, people. Q is the foundation for all of this, and every single topic has been put out there. Every single person that we need to pay attention to has been shown on there. Every investigation has already been done, and it will come out. It's told us, trust the plan. And this is one of the most obvious ones. And this is another confirmation that you cannot argue with this anymore. Q is the truth, and we're seeing how it works, and we're seeing how Donald Trump keeps bringing our attention to it.
Well, here's what most people think. Ukraine's latest drone attacks are about defeating Russia. The headlines scream about bombers hit, bridges damaged. But if you dig deeper, you'll find something far more dangerous and far more revealing. Because the real target is not Moscow. It's Washington, and more specifically, it's the man in the White House who is finishing the unfinished business of the past 250 years. Here's what they don't want you to understand. The British Empire never really ended. It's just changed tactics. And right now, they are so terrified of Donald Trump's second term that they're willing to risk everything, including World War III, to stop him. This is Susan Kokinda. I've been fighting this since the 1970s. While most battled the obvious, I was showing the hand of the CIA in the coup against Nixon and trying to stop the British-directed takedown of our economy. And I was building the political forces to defend our republic. I recently became Coalition's vice chair of the Michigan Republican Party, and I can tell you that what is happening now is different. Trump isn't just challenging their specific policies. He's committed to dismantling their entire system. And if you understand that and help, he's going to succeed. So today I'm going to show you exactly how the British are orchestrating this escalation, why they're so desperate to stop Trump, what his economic revolution really means, and how we can finally finish the American Revolution that started in 1776. So let's start with what happened this week. Ukraine launched Operation Spiderweb, massive drone attacks deep into Russian territory. On June 1st, Bombers and railroad villages were hit, killing 7, and that was followed by other attacks. Now, Foreign Policy magazine, which is not exactly a bastion of Trumpism, featured an excellent interview with George Beebe, a former director of Russian analysis for the CIA. After he pointed out that these attacks do cross Russian red lines because they strike at Russia's nuclear triad, and that under Russia's revised nuclear doctrine, that is a potential trigger for nuclear war. But then Beebe hit it exactly when he said, "So I think the Ukrainians' target audience for this operation was here in Washington, not in Russia." Think about that. Ukraine launches attacks that could trigger nuclear war, not to defeat Russia, but to force Trump's hand, to box him in, to make it politically impossible for him to negotiate peace. Now, the administration did come out hard yesterday with a public statement from the White House press secretary, Leavitt, who said unequivocally that Ukraine did not consult the United States in advance. Political underpinnings of how Russia was treated and lied to in the post-Soviet period. And he made clear that only sovereignty will protect Russia. He said, "It became clear that until we assert ourselves as an independent sovereign power capable of defending our future, we will not be respected." Now, Trump understands that, and he's approached the question of settling the Ukraine war from the standpoint of treating Russia as a sovereign nation with legitimate interests, not as a perpetual enemy to be threatened and challenged. Look at his big announcement on Monday from that standpoint. It's not a capitulation to the neocons or a betrayal of its base. It's an attempt to end the bloodletting by setting a deadline which is actually being echoed by some in Russia, and shifting the payments for weapons deliveries to Ukraine onto the backs of the Europeans, who are the ones who are still pushing Ukraine to continue the war. Now, of course, the British press played their typical role of trying to heighten the U.S.-Russia tensions by taking recent leaked Trump quotes out of context, as this BBC headline shows. But the White House yesterday shut that down, and Trump himself responded to the BBC's prodding that he is done with Putin with a hard no, and said, "No, I'm not done with him." Russia also took aim at the real culprit with this TASS headline. As for the other side of Trump's big announcement, the threat of potential secondary sanctions against Russia's trading partners, which is being pushed by perpetual war hawk Senator Graham, look at what is actually happening. Yesterday, Senate Majority Leader John Thune put Graham's Russian sanctions package on the back burner. He said, "It sounds like right now the president is going to attempt to do some of this on his own. If at some point the president concludes that it makes sense and adds value and leverage that he needs to keep in those negotiations to move the bill, then we'll do it." In other words, let Trump be Trump. And as for all the chatter that Trump has capitulated to the neocons and the globalists, why did Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth cancel all Pentagon participation at the Aspen Security Forum, with the Pentagon explicitly citing concerns about globalist influence? The elite British press is playing a major role at Aspen. The Financial Times, which just tried to blow up U.S.-Russian tensions, is moderating 5 panels. And The Economist, the mouthpiece for the City of London, is moderating 4. So now let's talk about the deeper significance of Jeffrey Epstein. Barbara Boyd, Mike Benz, and others have documented his role as a British intelligence asset. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know about his perversions. But I want to look at his financial career from a different standpoint. Serving time on his first conviction in 2009, Lord Peter Mandelson stayed at his house. Mandelson is the current British ambassador to the United States and was part of Tony Blair's political machine when he was prime minister. That should begin to give you a little more insight into how all of the sound and fury about the Epstein files is obscuring a much deeper battle that is going on. Most people think that the Epstein story is just about sex trafficking and compromising politicians and billionaires with underage girls. Well, that's certainly part of it. But if you're fixated on that, you'll miss Trump's history-making moves. Because the real battle is Donald Trump's commitment to free the United States from the empire's control which is exercised with the classic imperial tools of war and money. Epstein wasn't just running a blackmail operation. He was a key financial player in maintaining British imperial banking domination in the world. This is Susan Kokinda, and 1 year ago today, I was on the floor of the Republican convention in Milwaukee as part of the Michigan delegation. where I was privileged to watch Donald Trump launch his triumphant march to a second term as president. With over 50 years of political organizing against the modern-day British Empire under my belt, I can tell you that those 4 days in July, coming just after Trump's miraculous escape from assassination, marked a turning point in history. Now add to that a recently released interview with Russian President Putin, and you'll see emerging the potential for a coming world in which nations are sovereign, economically and strategically, and in which empires, today's globalists, are relegated to the dustbin of history. So in this midweek update, I'm going to look at 3 critical developments. How Putin's recent comments about the British and French empires provide the necessary context for understanding Trump's latest moves on Ukraine. Epstein's role as a financial player in maintaining British imperial banking domination, and Trump's political and economic counteroffensive. So let's start with Putin's comments that provide some crucial context for what Trump is doing. In a recently released interview, Putin dropped an observation about one of the most important elements of post-World War II history. He said, in some former colonial empires like Britain or France, they consider us responsible for the collapse of their colonial empires. And this historical negativity persists. The fact is, after World War II, the United States, along with Russia in some ways, worked toward the destruction of these empires and worked to assist the colonies in getting their independence and sovereignty. Now, that's the same outlook that Franklin Roosevelt had for the post-war period, an outlook which was sabotaged when British puppet Harry Truman instead threw America's might in with the British.
We're definitely living in interesting times. Just look around. Chaos, division, and strange occurrences seem to be everywhere. If this isn't the work of demons, then what is? The idea of fallen angels has been around for centuries, woven into our myths and religions. Are these beings influencing our world today? Think about the conflicts, the moral dilemmas we face. It's as if there's a battle between light and darkness playing out in our everyday lives. As we dive into these last few clips, consider the forces at play. What if the supernatural is more real than we've been led to believe?
Look at her neck. It's gonna look like something is coming out of her neck or coming into her neck. It's very, very satanic and very disgusting.
It's so quick, she's morphing. Her tongue, if you can see her tongue now, her tongue has changed, and it has a tremendous amount, it looks like veins or different type of lines running through it. I truly believe as the Lord said in the word that he's going to bring enmity between the seed of Satan and the seed of the woman. And then in Revelation it talks about the dragon attacking the woman that births the child. I believe we're talking about the wheat and the tares. There is a satanic reptilian, a serpent's bloodline. You can see her tongue change and then change back. You can see her eyes turn pitch black. Can you see that, folks? Beyonce has officially left the building. You're going to see a very evil and sinister look.
there's also a giant crater that's always on fire. That kind of reminds me of the craters I've talked about in my other videos, if you catch my drift. But this isn't the craziest part, no. The craziest part about all this, even though they have things that look like Lucifer's torch and the Egg of Ishtar and a giant plunger, the craziest part is this place is completely empty. And when I'm talking empty, I mean empty. You would be lucky to see one person or one car driving around in this insane city that's mostly made of white marble. The city that has another thing that looks like Lucifer's torch. Just look at this place. Literally the craziest looking city I've ever seen. I mean, if this place doesn't give you major Antichrist vibes, I don't know what does. This is their former president who's wearing a cape and statues with shields of lions on them. You know who's talked about as coming back as a lion, right? I'm not even done yet. There's more. I haven't even talked about these crazy ruins in Ashgabat. These ruins that look like they came from a prior civilization.
It's like 1 million followers. On Facebook, he has 831,000. That number is very specific. It's one off from Christ, the I Am, the 139. It's 138, which is the Ouroboros, the snake that bites its tail. That's the infinity symbol. Okay? Very crazy that he's been at 831 for a while now. This is also a snake year. You know, I mentioned Kobe Bryant a lot because he was the Black Mamba and he had that 666 workout. Well, anyway, Tyler Hansen, who I think might be the Oklahoma City Bomber. You can tell by his lips and his chin. I mean, that's an exact match. And it's very unique. It's not close, it's exact. And I'm connecting him with the Oklahoma City Bomber. And it's been since 1995 when that happened, exactly 30 years ago. And here we are, the Oklahoma City Thunder just won the NBA championship. And here the Oklahoma City Bomber is coming out as the fittest flat earther. Now what you got to do is, I'm saying that he may be controlled. Nobody gets that many subscribers and puts out that much truth without their channel getting taken down. I know, because I put out the same exact content. I can't get more than 5,000 subscribers before they take my channel. They'll strike me and get me out of there. I'm not the only one. A whole bunch of people do the same thing. And they have to keep reinventing themselves and keep doing new channels because their content gets taken. So Tyler Hansen didn't like that I exposed this. He did damage control, and he actually put a video out on me. All right? He was trying to say, hey, no, in 95, I was in high school and I played football varsity, and he pulls out a yearbook, and he shows a character that looks nothing like him. Did not have his chin. But anyway, I don't even know. You never know, though. I mean, these people could be reptilian. They could be fallen angels. Anybody that has many subscribers, I usually don't listen to them, because what that is that's herd mentality, where they're trying to program everybody on the same thing. So once they get up there, yeah, they might be putting out truth mixed with lies, but then they'll start throwing out lies. Like, for instance, he tried to do a prediction on the Super Bowl, and it was wrong. So what if he had 1 million followers, all right, and he's putting out all this truth, and then he says, oh, yeah, because look at this and this and this. He was doing some crazy connections and said, oh, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. Nope. But what he did is he had blind followers follow his information and put money in on the Chiefs, who lost. What a lot of people don't know is Patrick Mahomes was born in a pig year. This is a snake year. A pig is an enemy of a snake, and Patrick Mahomes lost. But he did well enough that he actually got to the Super Bowl. My prediction is based on that is he's probably going to get hurt this next year, or may not even make the playoffs. So just remember that. But anyway, back to Tyler Hansen, the fittest flat earther, all right? I love all the content he puts out, all right? I didn't like that he tried to do a prediction for Super Bowl and was wrong. That added to my fire of thinking he may be controlled. You don't have 831,000 followers, which is a significant number, which I've already told you is the Ouroboros, and you only follow one person. One person who is also controlled. He's got over 1 million followers. He jumps off cliffs. Anyway, that's my food for thought on Tyler Hansen, and anybody that probably has more than 500,000 subscribers.
I find it fascinating how everyone has a unique perspective on things. Take social media, for example. Some see it as a tool for connection, while others view it as a breeding ground for negativity. Personally, I think it's a double-edged sword. It can bring people together, but it can also amplify misunderstandings. What's crucial is how we choose to engage. Are we spreading positivity or just adding to the noise? I believe it's our responsibility to foster meaningful conversations. So what's your take on this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot if you could hit that like button. Your support helps me create more content that you love. And if you want to stay updated with everything I share, subscribing is the way to go. It's like joining a community where we can explore ideas together. Plus, it's free. So take a moment to show some love and join the journey. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.